morning. This is Johanny again from Lawrence Access Television, and here we are in this awesome simulation. So, how you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So, tell me, what are you doing here today?
Well, this is the Living History event that Lawrence does every single year. This is the 13th year we've done an event here. It's a Living History. We are the 5th Massachusetts Battery. We represent a group that actually did exist during the Civil War, fought in every major battle of the Army of the Potomac from 1862 through 1865. We come here, set up a camp. As you look around, you see we have a traveling forge because that's what Civil War artillery had. We have our 3-inch ordnance rifle there. There's another group that represents the 6th Maine. They also have a gun. And then, of course, our hosts, our sponsors, are the 6th Massachusetts Infantry. The 6th Massachusetts Infantry was actually raised here in Lawrence. It was one of the first units that Massachusetts sent south at the beginning of the Civil War to defend our nation's capital. And unfortunately, they were involved in a riot in Baltimore, and one of their members got killed. So, in fact, the 6th Massachusetts Infantry is kind of the first Massachusetts unit to get blooded in the war. And in honor of that, and in honor of Lawrence's contribution to the Civil War, they do this Living History every year.
Okay, and can you please tell me about your uniform and who you are representing today?
Sure. I'm representing basically your run-of-the-mill artillerymen. Artillery people were supposedly a little more intelligent, better educated than the infantry and the cavalry. I don't know how true that was. But your run-of-the-mill private in the artillery would wear what I'm wearing. This is called a shell jacket. It's actually a short jacket, and the reason that they wore a short jacket was because all the artillery was horse-drawn at that point, and often the soldiers would actually be on top of horses, riding, and if you have coattails, that gets in the way. They also wore, as you can see, double reinforced pants. Again, the extra layer on the inseam. If you're riding on a horse, your pants will last a little bit longer. The hat I'm wearing is actually not Army issue. This McDowell hat, probably they might have bought at a sutler, which was a civilian that would have traveled with the Army and sold things to the soldiers. And in fact, if you go over across the way, the 6th Maine actually is somebody who portrays a sutler. And then, of course, I have a belt on, and that's pretty much the minimal uniform that a soldier would have worn. I don't have it with me, but he'd also have a haversack, which is where he would carry his food, and a canteen, of course, which you'd need desperately on days that were really warm. So that was a basic outfit.
You must know a lot about history. Do you feel, like seeing like this is 2015 now, seeing like how is everything, how is the community, and how we have lost like the sense of being together? Do you feel sometimes that you will prefer to live in those days, or you are happy where you are right now?
No, I'm perfectly happy where I am right now. I mean, the reality is that there was a tremendous amount of hardship, and life was very difficult in the mid-19th century. We were living at that point in pretty much a rural society. We were just getting urbanized and industrialized. Healthcare wasn't as good. We were basically at that point a backwards third world country. And again, that's one of those things that you don't realize when you study the Civil War. We were a backwards third world country that was trying to ape in our military what was considered the first world country, and that was France. So the funny little hat is called a kepi, and that's actually a French hat. And the reason we did that is we wanted to be like the French because we thought the French were really good soldiers. So one of the things that we don't appreciate is that the Civil War was really fought at a time when this nation was, pretty backward. The Europeans who came to observe the Civil War didn't take many lessons away. They thought these Americans are barbarians. They don't understand how to conduct a civilized war. And unfortunately they ignored things like the Siege of Petersburg, the Siege of Vicksburg, which looked a lot like the First World War. So who knows, maybe if the Europeans had taken us a little more seriously, the First World War wouldn't have been as horrific as it was. But no, I don't miss the 19th century at all.
Okay, when you do these demonstrations, what do you want people to live with?
The thing that I hope people come away with when they look around this camp is not to think that somehow people in the middle of the 19th century were stupid or primitive. If you look at the equipment and how it was developed, this is actually highly sophisticated stuff. If you go look at the wheels of our gun or the forge, you'll notice they're dished in. Well, they were dished in for a reason. When you're going through a muddy road, you want the mud to go out, not in. and that dish did it to them. It did it for them. So, I want people to understand that human beings have always been very clever, technologically astute. It's just we know what we do today because we can learn from prior generations. But, our great-great-grandparents were every bit as clever as we are today, maybe more clever, who knows. And, as a result, they did the best they could with what they had. Sometimes I think we get a little bit arrogant and think, oh, we got cell phones, we've got the internet, everybody else was just primitive before us.
Yes, but we have all of this now, but also we have lost like the human touch.
That may be true. Again, you got to remember that there are pluses and minuses to everything. In the 19th century, yes, you're right, people had to communicate face to face. There was no television, so when we go in the evenings and have events like this, we do strange things like sing around campfires and talk, stuff we don't do anymore.
Yes.
I
miss that.
Yeah. On the other hand, the reality is that, the technology that we have today does promote a certain amount of closeness that we couldn't have had before. So, there are pluses and there are minuses. But it's fun to think about a time when, you're right, you had to create your own entertainment because there was no radio to turn on. There was no TV to turn on. If you wanted a song, you sang it, or your friends sang it. Or if you were really bad, you let them sing and you just hum.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love your uniform, and thank you very much for teaching the new generations about the Civil War.
Thank you very much, and there's lots of other great people to talk to, so I hope you get a chance to talk to the rest of my colleagues here.
Good morning. So thank you very much for this awesome event that you guys have put together. So let me know who are you representing, and how do you get involved in the Civil War?
Well, I'm not representing any particular historical person. This is a hobby basically out of my love for history, specifically the Civil War, and we do this every year in the Lawrence Common. This is our 13th year doing it.
Awesome. So you have breakfast today.
Yeah.
Do you have like the customized like a breakfast that they used to have?
Yes, everything we ate this morning was made from things that would have been issued to the troops. We had salt pork, which was fried, and then with potatoes and onions. And that was everything there would have been issued to the troops to eat, and it was quite delicious, actually.
Awesome. And let me know about the sleeping arrangements. Did people stay here last night? Do people come back and forth?
We've been here since Friday night.
Wow. So how's your back?
Fine. There are a lot of air mattresses in the tents, actually. But yeah, some guys do sleep in the ground. I did it for 15 years. I can't do it. I can't quite get a good night's sleep anymore doing it that way. But yeah, we sleep here. It's fine. It's very quiet. It's quieter than you'd think being in the middle of a city. It's nice, actually.
Awesome. So what do you want people to take away from this experience when they come see it?
An awareness of what makes part of the history of this country. I mean, we almost ceased to exist 150 years ago, and a lot of people today don't have a clue that almost happened. I mean, we almost ceased to exist, no joke, and 1 million guys gave their lives to keep the country together. Well, 500,000. The other half were fighting to make the country in two, but whatever.
Yes.
They were all Americans. So.
Yes, and also it's very nice to know that a big piece of history happened here in Lawrence.
Yes, there were units that went out to the war from Lawrence. There was some war production here, making uniforms and things like that. I don't think there were any armories here. I don't think they made any weapons, muskets, cannons, anything here, but a lot of the basic supplies the troops needed were made here.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you. And you can see this interview in Lawrence Access Television. Thank you.
Okay, take care now.
Good morning. So how you doing today? What are you drinking?
Coffee.
Coffee. Okay. So tell me, how much work does it go into putting all of this together?
Quite a bit. I mean, everybody here is a volunteer and provide their own tents and everything like that. For the 5th Mass battery here, I do the cooking for the battery. and so I handle all the food for the 12 people we have here for this unit today. And that takes quite a bit of, because we're cooking over an open fire, so it takes a lot more work than cooking at home and things like that.
Okay, so how do you learn how to cook without any utensils, any microwave, and anything from this century?
Well, mostly you start, you have to learn to cook at home first. You want to learn to cook at home with all the modern conveniences, and then you start varying based on that. One of the things that you do, of course, is you want to research how they did it in the 19th century. Do anything you can to read, original letters, newspaper articles, veterans' memoirs, anything you can read about to understand how they did it, and then start trying it out. Some of it seems strange at first, but then when you try it out, you start to figure out how it works and why. And one of the great things you can do to practice actually is do a lot of cooking in a crock pot at home, because that sort of simulates the low level of heat that you get off of a campfire that you want to cook for long, slow periods.
And how do you get involved in this?
How did I get involved in this? I was involved in doing historical interpretation at a museum for a long time, and one of the members of the units came out there to do some things, and we got talking, and I ended up doing it from that. But I work professionally in historical interpretation for museums and writing history magazine articles and things like that. So for me, it's a way of life.
Awesome. And now, knowing about how everything worked out before, does it make you feel grateful of all the things that makes things faster and easier now?
Yeah, definitely. The more you find out about the pre-industrial past, the more thankful you are to live today. Yeah. From a convenience perspective, from the perspective of health and safety and things like that, yeah, definitely. You're very grateful to live now rather than then. Yeah. I mean, to me, the most important thing for people to remember about the Civil War is the importance of what was at stake if the North had lost. The war put an end to slavery, and the war established that you can't undo an election with violence. In a lot of other countries, elections, when one side doesn't like the outcome, there's revolutions, assassinations, and violence, and the end of slavery and establishing the rule of law as the way we were going to do things in this country is very important.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I love your uniform. I love this cup, and I'm sure that you have some of it also at home.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're gonna have for lunch. Salt pork.
What are the options? Salt pork and hardtack, or hardtack and salt pork?
Salt pork and salt pork.
Not a hardtack. No food.
Well, isn't the wind doing just as much as the bellows? To a point, but the wind doesn't get nearly enough. I mean, the air is coming out of that at about 40 miles an hour. 40, yeah, about 40 miles an hour. Top half comes down, squeezing out air.
So that it's pumping the entire time instead of only when I...
Exactly. If you were to suddenly stop, you'd still get airflow for about 10 seconds.
Oh, perfect. That's genius.
So what I made here is just something for looks. What I did was I pretty much pointed out the front. Before it was just a flat piece of metal, just like the end right here. And I did this all barehanded. Didn't hurt, surprisingly. And after I pretty much pointed out the front, I decided to twist it. So I put it back in about the center-ish. And after I did that, I clamped it with a vise, the pointed side. And all you do is you just get something that can clamp it even harder, and you twist it. It's an easy process, but you need to do it perfectly to give it a nice and even twist.
How old are you? What is your name? And why are you doing this?
I'm 14 from 2 days ago. My name's Nick Johnson. Some people call me Moose. And I joined the 5th Mass because in elementary school, Ms. Bekta, my 5th grade teacher, decided to start something called Civil War Day, and I found a big interest in it, and I really loved it. So last Christmas, I decided to go to a party, meet a bunch of people, and they all seemed very nice, and I just loved everything about this.
Okay, girls, so this looks here like a store.
Yep, it
Okay, so let me know what is the store, what they used to sell there, and what it is.
Well, it's actually called the Sutler. That's the term for it. Right now we just have touristy things. But the women would have followed the soldiers around, telling them, like medical supplies, bandages, things they would need on the battlefield.
Okay, tell me about this awesome dress. It looks like it's handmade, and also, what was the price back then? And if this was only for like people who have money?
The dress has several layers, so underneath you have the pantaloons, and then I have a big chemise that goes the full length of my body, and then I have a corset, and then I have my hoop, and then I have finally the dress, which is in two pieces. It's a blouse and it's a skirt, and this would have been something people would have worn at the battlefield. This is very dressed down. It's not very pretty. Most of the dresses in town would have had two pieces, but they would have had all kinds of ribbons and trims, and they would have been quite fancy.
Okay, so what made you get involved into the Civil War history?
My son liked history, and we had gone to one of these reenactments, and we decided that we wanted to become involved and met the people and enjoyed it. Went along. Yeah, now we're stuck.
Awesome. Okay, so you're pretty young, so that is very awesome to see a young person who likes history and likes to volunteer their time. So what made you be part of this?
I actually started 10 years ago around. I was about 13, 14. And my mother's friend was the captain of our group. And I'm in horse, so I ride horses. And they had horses, and we were at a distance at the time. Come down, they let her ride, mom on the uniform. And then my mom got involved, my dad, my brother, and now my boyfriend.
Awesome. So what have you learned about the Civil War that are not in the textbooks?
Honestly, everything I know about the Civil War isn't even from really school. It's just from doing this. It's such a good hands-on kind of experience. I learned. I don't know what they teach anymore, but I know when I was in school, they were teaching, about the battle, about the generals, about the soldiers. You don't really get a look at the women, the civilians, the backstage things. Not even about the horses. I learned so much about the horses. So doing this, you really get a look, even doing some of the battles that little reenactments, you really get a first-hand experience of everything. It's awesome.
And what do you want people to take away after they come to this event?
I want people to be excited to learn. I want them, if anything, to take away a little bit of history with them. The interest, and especially we love doing this event. We have a lot of young kids that come every year. They know we do this every year, and to see their excitement, to see how interested they are when you teach them about the guns and everything. And they come back every year and they're like, oh, I know what you do, I know what this is called, and you don't get that in a school, I really don't think, and that's what I love to see.
Awesome. So now that you've been part of this for many years, do you find yourself feeling like you want to incorporate this fashion into your everyday fashion?
No. There are way too many layers, and the heat is very, it gets to you. Yeah, no. I enjoy some of the details on the clothing, but I do not enjoy all of the layers of the clothing. So I sympathize with the women that had lived back then, and they went through a lot.
And it's funny how you say all the things that you have on and men make fun of us because we take a long time. I think we don't take that much.
It takes, to put this on, it takes about 20 minutes to put everything together, which is a bit crazy. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, and I hope that the kids come here and they can see all the wonderful things that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So guys, thank you so much for giving me this interview. So now let me know about your uniform, who are you representing, and how do you get involved in this?
We represent the 6th Maine Battery. I got involved many years ago because I was teaching U.S. history and wanted to find a way to bring kids into understanding and an enjoyment of U.S. history. Dan?
And we got into it about 4 years ago. My son, we went to a Hillsborough event, and my son asked, how do you become an actor? And so next thing we know, we were signed up, and we've been doing it ever since. And this is actually our first event here at Lawrence.
Oh, that is awesome. So what do you learn about the involvement of the city of Lawrence in this during the Civil War?
Well, Lawrence, of course, Amos Lawrence originally supported the abolitionist movement and supplied people out in Lawrence, Kansas area with some supplies and money and support in light of trying to ensure that that part of Kansas would not be a pro-slavery state. So that's one way. And of course, the units that came from here, including the 6th Mass, were highly involved in various engagements. Dan?
Okay, so you both teach.
Yeah.
What have you learned during this time that you didn't know in your years of teaching?
Oh, wow. Well, how to fire a 10-pound parrot gun. Did not realize what went into it, and from a safety standpoint, how dangerous it really was for the crew, the firing crew. Like being a teacher, safety is utmost in my mind, and so there's number one I won't do because I just don't feel I can remember all the steps to it, and he's the ramrod, so I can do anything else but number one. Jancy?
My appreciation of this over the years of doing it, other than the great joy of working with Elizabeth and Sean who run the event, but my involvement with this unit, the 5th Mass Battery and the 11th Mass Volunteer Infantry, is this greater understanding of what everybody went through. And of course, the Civil War is the most horrible breakdown of any legal time in our history. So I can still bring that into my law classes and talk about it, and infuse a little bit of history into the law classes that I teach. But the wonderful enjoyment of everybody's different characters that they portray, the history that they bring to it, the love of learning about the weapons of the time period, which were horrible. And I want to clearly emphasize that most of us, in fact, the majority of us, do this with the understanding of the warning of how horrible war is. It's not to try to promote any kind of military behavior. Even though I served in the military, I think most of the people I've known through the years who have seen any kind of action or been in the military know that you'd never go around promoting that. But we promote rather the love of the history and really how horrible, I mean, over the years, how horrible this war really was. And thank goodness that we came through it, and hope we never ever have to see anything like that again.
Awesome. Now, are you still teaching?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you find that your classes are more animated and more real now that you do all of this? Have you ever gone to class dressed up?
No.
You should do it. Come on. I just planted that seed there.
I did do it for my son's elementary school and drilled their kids, and they got a real kick out of it. And they asked me if this was a real uniform, and I just said, yeah, I love wearing 18-ounce wool in the summer. It's so much fun. But it was fun. It was fun doing it. Unfortunately, I teach printing and photography, so there's only so much I can kind of sneak in there. But I have thought maybe for Halloween, maybe to walk in like this and see what it would look like. I might get looked at by my administration a little funny, but it would be funny to watch.
Awesome. And now this is a weird question. Have you found yourself having dreams with the uniform and kind of like you are there?
The closest I've come to that was when I went, in fact, dressed in infantry uniform with a friend of mine with this unit here, Jim DeMars, to the 150th Gettysburg, and there they did the very best they could to have everyone stay portraying it as historically accurate as possible. As far as actual dreams of it, I think more than anything, if you study enough, the nightmares, there've been a few nightmares about how horrible. I would never wish to step back into that time. I wouldn't want to live during that time. I like my dishwasher. I like my washing machine. My microwave. But coming back here makes me appreciate them and my family much more. My kids don't do this reenacting stuff much with me anymore. But when we did it, it gave them an appreciation of the things they have, and because we go without a lot when we reenact at this point. But we had a good breakfast nonetheless today. So
now, what do you want? Just your students and also the people that come to these events to take away from the Civil War?
I would hope that they would come to understand not just the technical things that they come here and find out about a cannon or the type of uniform that people wore or what people went without, but I was hope, and it is a great dream of mine, that they would understand how terrible, once again, how terrible this conflict was, and how many people, including an ancestor of mine who died from disease, what they went through to try to iron out the differences that people have had in this nation. And let's hope that we can take hope from that. It's history that teaches us to hope, said Robert E. Lee, and I'd like them to see the hope of a future of peace and not one where we'd ever have to find the kind of conflict that they saw back then. That's my dream.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you for being part of history and making history, because all of this will be, again, just like in those times, in the papers, in the television now. So thank you very much, guys. So what are you making?
Salt pork.
How long does it take to be fully cooked?
Well, this was already parboiled, so it is cooked through, but I'm trying to fry it up because it has so much fat, it's so stringy. It's really hard to eat unless you cook it rather well. A lot of times in the war they ate this raw and did not cook it due to lack of time and not being able to start a fire on the march and things like that. But salt pork was the most common meat ration for the Northern Army in the Civil War, and you can still buy it today in the grocery store in 12-ounce packages, which is the size of the federal meat ration at the time, coincidentally. It was 12 ounces to a day made a ration. So.
Do you still cook it at home?
I don't usually cook it at home unless I'm cooking it in something, using it for soup or something like that, putting it in pea soup or baked beans or something. To eat it straight, just as a meal like that, I usually only do it at reenactments.
It's a gimlet. Where's the safe place? Like I said,
Rebel fire, left to right, 2-second interval. Fire!
Ready.
Gun one up. Section fire on my command. Fire! Service and secure the peace. Service and secure. Hi, I'm D.B. Bechter from the 5th Mass Battery, and what you just saw was a demonstration of a 3-inch ordnance rifle and a Parrott gun. The first firing was called a ripple fire with a 2-second delay, and the second fire was a section fire, meaning both guns are fired at the same time. I represent the gunner, or the person in charge of the gun crew. That's about it.
Hi, I'm City Councilor Kendris Vasquez, representing the City of Lawrence, and it is a great honor for me to be here today at the reenactment of the Civil War. It has been a wonderful event, and I am glad that I was able to make it to try to experience firsthand what a lot of the brave men and women who fought for our liberties endure. This was definitely a wonderful event. I encourage everyone to participate and come and experience it. Once again, City Councilor Kendris Vasquez, appreciating the big support and efforts by this wonderful men and women who are volunteering their time today here at the Campaign Common Park. Thank you.
Good morning. You look awesome. Thank you very much. Can you please explain to me what are you wearing and what all of this means?
I'm wearing a civilian outfit from the Civil War period. I represent Mayor George William Brown, the mayor of Baltimore in 1861, when the Massachusetts troops came to Baltimore and was assaulted by the pro-Southern Baltimore citizens, and I helped them to march through the streets and get on the train to go to Washington.
Awesome. And what made you get involved with the Civil War history?
I was always interested in railroad history, and we were trying to preserve the President Street Station, which is the railroad station that the Massachusetts came to Baltimore in. My brother also had developed an interest in the Civil War and talked me into going to round table meetings, and so that was really the beginning of my deep interest in the Civil War. I had studied it from time to time before that, but my real interest was then, which was about 1987.
Awesome. And how important was Lawrence and the history in their participation during the Civil War?
Well, they were the first troops that answered Lincoln's call for 75,000 troops after Fort Sumter was fired on. South Carolina has seceded, and several other states quickly followed them. So Lincoln needed troops to put down the rebellion. The Massachusetts troops was the first fully outfitted group to arrive in Baltimore and go on to Washington, D.C. The troops that had arrived previously were poorly armed and uniformed, so Lincoln was very anxious for the Lawrence troops to arrive, the Massachusetts troops, because that meant the small regular army that existed at that time was supplanted by a well-trained and well-armed militia.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And how can people get involved in this?
They can go to search for local Civil War roundtables. Those roundtables hold monthly meetings. They have speakers on various parts of the Civil War. Also, they can join groups like the Lawrence Civil War Memorial Guard and do living history reenactment. And the next step further, of course, is to get in the full reenactment, which would be participating in battles and at various Civil War celebrations during the year. And so probably the deepest involvement would be in the reenactor group.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You look awesome. Thank you. Okay, so here we are again, reliving all of the Civil War. Can you please tell me, how did you get involved in this, and what have you learned?
Well, I got involved in this because of my very strong interest in history. Local history primarily is what I'm really interested in. Merrimack Valley, Massachusetts, and then the Civil War came to me a little later, because I don't even know why I picked up the interest in the Civil War, except that I was in the military in 1960s. I was in Vietnam a year, and I was in field artillery. So when I came back to Lawrence from the war, and I realized that Lawrence was involved in an early war, and I said, well, gee, they must have had soldiers that served from Lawrence. And sure enough, close to 3,000. But the problem is, none of these soldiers from Lawrence have ever had an inventory done, ever. So I decided to get my facts and figures together, and now I have 33 binders full of Lawrence Civil War soldiers' information, pictures from A to Z.
Wow.
33 2-inch binders. That's all.
That's amazing. And now question, coming to these events like every year, what have you learned that you didn't learn in school, like with the textbooks?
What did I learn? Well, I'm not sure that Lawrence was involved. That's because I'm not originally from Lawrence. But I knew a lot about the Civil War because the high school that I went to, right, it was a mansion. And the owner of the mansion was a friend. Well, it was actually, his wife was related to General Grant. Right, so he spent a lot of time there. So we knew a lot about the Civil War. Right, in fact, Grant and I slept in the same room because one of the home rooms, right, that, of course it was part of the mansion, and it had a big fireplace, right, and up over the top of the fireplace there was a plaque that said President Grant slept here.
Wow, what an honor.
Yeah, me and him both slept in the same room.
Did you had any dreams or anything flying around at night? No.
No. I don't. nothing flies around at night, but maybe some bats. But Joe sort of fib to you because he was there. He was there during the Civil War. He was an artilleryman in the Civil War. He says it was Vietnam, but it was really the Civil War.
Okay.
The way sometimes I feel certain days, I feel as though I was in the Civil War in the South, but it wasn't the case. But again, there's that similarity when you see the cannons firing in certain movies like Glory and the other movies that have come out in Gettysburg, which I've been to several times, and I expect to go back there again this year. But you realize when you see the movies, this was real. This actually happened. And the cannons that were used in most all the scenes are similar to the cannons that I trained with at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The trail cannons, that split trail. And then later in Vietnam, we had the self-propelled 105 howitzers. They were all track vehicles. So there's a big difference. I'm kind of glad we had the track vehicles because there was 6 inches of steel protecting all of us during the tour of duty in Vietnam. But the field artillery, and having been exposed to it myself and through training, it brought an extra feeling of, what the guys went through 150 odd years ago plus, and it's quite an experience.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
And I'm old enough, right, that we actually still had some Civil War veterans alive and living in the neighborhood, right? And of course I had some ancestors that were involved in it, and they were also involved in the Revolutionary War, so I'm like sort of a history buff anyway. So.
How do you think, how important it is for the people of Lawrence to know that we were the first ones to answer to President Lincoln, because I didn't know until 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's very important. I think everybody in Lawrence should have known about Lawrence history. I mean, there's a lot of history here. You just walk around the Common, all the historic buildings. Most of those were here in 1845, 46. So, it's very important. You walk down the street and say, okay, where did that building come from? It wasn't built yesterday. It was built back a long time ago. So, history is important. I think everybody should know a little bit about the history.
Yes, and you said that you have binders and binders now full of history. What can we find there if we were to open them?
Okay, you'll find a particular soldier from Lawrence, one way or the other, either born in Lawrence or enlisted here in Lawrence for a particular regiment. And hopefully I'll have a photograph and where they're buried, because they wouldn't be still living at this time. And information about maybe their family, a picture or information about their wives, and the obituary from the newspaper. And I've had great help from people like Louise Sandberg, the special collections person at the Lawrence Library, who's been a tremendous help. In fact, if it wasn't for her in the early years, I wouldn't have the material I have now. But getting back to people in the city knowing about Lawrence's history before the 1912 strike, I want to add, each new immigrant group that comes into the city, it's a learning experience. And what they have to realize is, I know they have their own heritage from whence they came, but if they're staying in Lawrence for a long period of time, I would think they would like to know more about Lawrence's history, early history, from its beginnings until the present time. And to me, it would do more good than harm for everyone that can pick up a book and tend to go back just to browse through and see how the city was formed, and then what happened to the city's residents up until the present time, and including the Civil War and other events. Also the strike of 1912, which was a highlight period of time for the city, and other events, some disasters such as the 1860 Pemberton Mill collapse. Again, that's history, that's Lawrence early history, and it's important as well as the present history.
Okay, so every year when you come from these events, what do you take away from it?
What do I take away? A lot of aching legs and so forth, because I'm going to chase Joe around the common here in a minute. But I take away a few more little facts, right? Especially if you hang out with Joe, you learn a lot. All right, right. He's got tons and tons and tons of Lawrence history. And in fact, we do a show every once in a while whenever he's free, because he's a very busy man. And we have a little Lawrence history show. It's all about Lawrence. So, and take away a lot of enjoyment because it's a nice day. It usually doesn't rain too hard, and if it does, you can go up and sort of laugh at the guys and hiding out in the tents. But that's about it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much, and I really hope to see you show again very, very soon. And thank you so much for gathering all of this information, because now you are part of the history. And long after you are gone, and long after you are gone, you guys, people are gonna be reading about you guys. So thank you very much. Thank you.